Most people imagine one of two endings for a coffin after a century. Either a perfectly arranged skeleton survives, or everything has become shapeless. The truth lies between those pictures, and varies more than most people expect. A person buried in the Mojave Desert in 1925 would look very different from a person buried in a Louisiana bayou in the same year. A person in a sealed lead casket in 1925 would look very different from a person in a simple pine box. What happens underground is never biology alone. It is biology, chemistry, geology, and every choice made at the funeral home. Let's follow one body, one coffin, all the way down. A grave is not a sealed laboratory. It is a buried weather system, where temperature, rain, roots, and microbes negotiate every inch of the century. Two graves only yards apart can age differently, because one drains after a storm while the other quietly gathers water. The instant a coffin is sealed, the body inside begins a process called autolysis. The word means self-eating. Your own enzymes, the ones you used to digest food while alive, start digesting your own cells from the inside out. This begins within minutes of death, almost immediately. By hour 24, your cells are starting to break down on their own. Meanwhile, trillions of bacteria from the gut begin feeding on the body. This is putrefaction. It produces gas, and the gas has to go somewhere. In a sealed coffin, the gas builds up. After about 48 hours, the pressure can be significant enough to vent. This is why some funeral homes, in older days, recommended opening the casket once during visitation to release the pressure. By day 3 to 5, the body is bloating. By week 2, the skin is starting to slip. By month 3, most of the soft tissue is starting to liquefy. In a wooden coffin, this liquid soaks into the wood. In a metal coffin, that liquid pools at the bottom instead. In a sealed modern casket with a rubber gasket, it stays inside the casket and creates a corrosive soup. This is why burial vault companies exist. They sell concrete outer shells around the coffin. Those shells keep its contents from leaking directly into surrounding soil. It is also why those containers are increasingly controversial, environmentally and otherwise. Embalming can slow this opening chapter, but it cannot cancel it. Eventually, moisture, temperature, and time take control, while a new community of microbes inherits the work. Cotton and wool surrender early, while synthetic fibers, plastic buttons, and metal fasteners can remain after the surrounding cloth has vanished. By year 1, in a typical wooden coffin in temperate soil, the body has lost most of its soft mass. What remains is bones, hair, some cartilage, and a long list of items that resist bacterial breakdown. Hair, surprisingly, is almost indestructible underground. Nails last decades. Teeth, properly preserved by enamel, can last centuries. The coffin itself is also decomposing, depending on what it's made of. After 1 year, a simple pine coffin in ordinary soil remains largely intact. By year 5, the sides are starting to buckle. By year 10, the lid has usually collapsed inward under soil pressure, and the coffin looks more like a vague wooden frame around the remains. A hardwood coffin, oak, walnut, lasts longer. A sealed metal casket, ironically, lasts much less than wood because the trapped moisture inside accelerates corrosion. Many metal caskets have collapsed entirely by year 10. The body, meanwhile, has become a complex cocktail of soil chemistry. Nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, potassium, all the elements that made up the person's bones and tissue, are slowly leaching into the surrounding ground. This isn't a bad thing. That is how graveyards function as ecosystems. Released nutrients feed nearby plants, making old cemeteries unusually lush. In some cases, a person buried in 1900 has, indirectly, helped a maple tree grow to maturity by 2000. Loose backfill settles into the space left by the collapsing lid. Below, fungi lace through damp wood, and protection from the earth can become confinement with trapped moisture. If cracks connect coffin and soil, insects enter. If the seal holds, the body's own water stays locked inside. By year 25, in most temperate soils, the bones are visible and largely intact. Hair may still be present. Nails are usually gone. The coffin is mostly soil-colored wood fragments. Any metal fittings, hinges, handles, nameplates are heavily corroded. By year 50, bones are starting to change. They become brittle. The surrounding soil stains them into ordinary shades of brown or tan. Teeth may still be present, but enamel is starting to crack. What happens next depends on three big factors. Factor 1. Soil pH. Acidic soil, like soil under pine forests. Alkaline soil, like dry calcium-rich soil in the American Southwest. Factor 2. Water. A high water table or frequent flooding can carry away soluble bone minerals and accelerate decay. A dry grave preserves much more. The third factor is the coffin itself. Burial vaults and sealed caskets delay decomposition but also delay nutrient release. They essentially put the body in a slow-motion time capsule. Even after 50 years, a body in a sealed vault might look closer to year 5 than year 50. Bone is not stone. Its collagen weakens while mineral crystals trade elements with groundwater. Iron, manganese, and calcium slowly write the surrounding landscape into what remains. Archaeologists call this chemical afterlife diagenesis. Part of an excavated bone may already be the earth that surrounded it. By year 75 to 100, in normal soil with a simple wooden coffin, what you find at the bottom of the grave is a jumbled collection of bones, mostly discolored, in roughly the anatomical position they were buried in. Soil-stained wood fragments, often mistaken for old roots by people walking over the grave. A distinct, faint outline in the soil, where the coffin used to be, sometimes called a coffin shadow. If the grave has been opened before, for any reason, a clear vertical disturbance in the soil. Hair is usually gone by year 75. Teeth are usually gone by year 90, depending on the soil. In dry or cold conditions, bones can persist for centuries after that. In the permafrost of Siberia, researchers have opened graves from the 1800s and found bodies that look surprisingly intact. In the bogs of northern Europe, Iron Age bodies from over 2,000 years ago have been recovered with hair and skin still visible. In the desert southwest of the United States, even without a coffin, bodies from the 1880s have been found with hair, leather clothing, and in some cases, recognizable faces. But in a typical temperate cemetery with a typical wooden coffin, after 100 years, you're mostly looking at bones in dirt. Age alone never tells the whole underground story. Archaeology can still read a vanished coffin as a pattern in disturbed soil. A cut through older layers, changed texture, and a rectangle of altered acidity can preserve the event without preserving the box. Now consider the part most people almost never think about at all. Graveyards are full of trees, and every tree has roots. Roots grow toward water, and they grow toward nutrient-rich patches of soil. A buried body, especially in a wooden coffin, becomes a nutrient patch. In a 100-year-old cemetery, the root systems of nearby trees have often threaded through the wooden remains of coffins, drawing calcium, nitrogen, and phosphorus out of the bones. The tree grows faster as the coffin disappears. Dissolved bone minerals travel slowly into its branches. In some cases, a tree planted above a grave will literally integrate human bone fragments into its trunk. The bone becomes part of the tree's structure. This is not metaphorical, it is literal chemistry. This is one reason why old European graveyards have such enormous trees. The trees are, in part, made of the people buried under them. There is something both unsettling and oddly beautiful about this. The nutrients go up. The tree grows. The body becomes the canopy. After enough cycles, the entire cemetery functions as a slow, distributed recycling system. A root absorbs dissolved ions, atom by atom. Calcium becomes wood, and nitrogen becomes leaves. Soon the boundary around one human life grows chemically impossible to draw. Fungi widen that exchange beneath the grass, trading minerals for sugars in a network that ignores the borders marked above. A 100-year-old grave, open today, would tell a very specific story about how that person died, where they lived, what they could afford, and what their family believed. It would also, quietly, host fungal networks, roots, and soil bacteria. Ground beetles and earthworms would live on the chemistry of one human life. The person is gone. The chemistry isn't. After a century, the coffin is less a container than a fading record. Wood stains, mineral traces, altered roots, and the patient architecture of soil. Matter remains, but ownership dissolves into the landscape.